professional mermaid and you have a silicone mermaid tail, there's a good chance that after a while your tail will develop paint scrapes. As you can see here, we are looking at the back side of my fluke. So this is the part that would hit the ground if I was sitting on my bottom. There are some paint scrapes that have come off of my tail. I slammed it around at an event one time in an attempt to draw attention to myself. And yeah, it got quite dinged up. So today we're going to fix our tails. But before you go ahead and follow this tutorial, you make sure that you message your tail maker and ask them questions about how to repair your tail before doing anything you see online. Just because sometimes if you do have a warranty with a tail maker, if you attempt to fix things yourself, that warranty will kind of just not apply anymore. So make sure that you reach out to your tail maker. If you have spoken with your tail maker and they say that you have permission to repair the paint on your silicone mermaid tail by yourself, then congratulations, you can continue watching this video. Otherwise, you can just watch it out of curiosity or whatever. We're gonna go ahead and talk about what you need for this. It actually isn't a very scary process, but I do recommend you test your paint on like a piece of cardboard or something before you test it on your tail to make sure that the ratios you mix will allow the glue you're going to be using to cure. With that being said, everything you will see in this video will be in the description box of this video. We're gonna go repair my baby boy now. We're Sparta! Here's what you need to repair paint scrapes on your silicone mermaid tail. Paper towels, 90% strength rubbing alcohol, eyeshadow in the color of your tail, the area that you need to repair. I'm going to be using this shade here. Make sure you talk with your tail maker first before using eyeshadow. You can also buy pigments. I will be using the eyeshadow applicator from my eyeshadow packet thing to fix my tail. You can feel free to use a miniature paintbrush if you'd prefer, or just go ahead and use a toothpick. You'll see what this is for in a few minutes. You may want a toothpick or a popsicle stick. You need a mixing bowl or surface to mix your glue and your eyeshadow together with. I will be using the top of a paper cup since I'm not going to be using a ton of paint. You will of course need your Sil-Poxy glue. This binds the silicone together if you have any tears. It also can act as a paint if you mix it with eyeshadow. You will need a mask. I'm filming this on the day I filmed the last tutorial on how to repair a torn tail, which you can watch by clicking in the right hand screen. I don't have a mask today. Instead, I'll be pulling my shirt over my face. And I am in a well-ventilated area, which you will need. Last, you will need powder-free nitrile gloves. So put those on, then we're gonna get started. Before we apply any paint to our tails, we are going to take some rubbing alcohol and soak a paper towel with it, like so. Put the cap back on too so you don't get high, so we don't want that. Now take this and wipe down gently any areas that you will be painting. There's a lot of alcohol on these spots. You can dab them with the paper towel to help them dry. After you clean your tail, it is time to prepare either your pigment, which if you're using pigment, make sure you follow Smooth On's directions, and you can call them for any questions you have. But I'm using eyeshadow that is the same color as the areas I am going to paint. Make sure if you are using eyeshadow that it is brand new and not contaminated with your face. So I'm just scraping up some of this and loosening up the particles, or loosening up the, I'm loosening up the eyeshadow, that's what I'm doing, not particles. I think I'm standing in an ant battle. After you loosen that up, somehow scoop it in onto the top of your mixing surface. This is difficult for me because I just picked a stupid technique for doing this. So I'm gonna go like this and try to get the eyeshadow onto this container. I won't be using all this eyeshadow at once, but I thought it was good to prepare. for when I need it. Here comes the part that's a bit scary. We're going to use some of the Sil-Poxy silicone adhesive. You have 5 minutes to work with it at room temperature, and it will cure in 12 minutes at room temperature. It's a little hotter today than room temperature. Ideal to work with it at room temperature, but when we have days that are room temperature here in northern Michigan, usually the weather's wonky. So I'm taking advantage of a warm day. Because this cures so fast, it's very important that once you squirt it out of the tube, when you put the cap back on the tube, you don't get any air inside of this container, because then all of your Sil-Poxy that's in here will dry up, and that would be terrible. When you use the Sil-Poxy and mix it with your pigment or eyeshadow, you want to make sure you don't mix in too much eyeshadow or pigment, because that will prevent this from curing properly. I would mix up a few batches and test them on cardboard or something, just to see what ratio works well for you to get the color you want, and so that the epoxy or the Sil-Poxy dries correctly. I found that a 2-to-1 ratio works pretty well for my eyeshadow and Sil-Poxy, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to squirt this on there, mix it up really fast, then I'm going to smooth it on my tail using my gloves. I'm going to take a glob of this and dot it along the areas of my tail that need repainting. It matches pretty nicely, and now I'm going to smooth it down with my finger. I'm going to use patting motions, and I'm going to wipe anything that's on the side that I don't need. Again, I'm sure you'll find a technique that works well for you. I'm just a finger painter, so this is how I do things. That's the first coat. I'm going to go in and do a second coat after this first coat cures, which will be about 12 minutes. Alright, mermaids and mermen, change your gloves, because we are going to go in and go over our paint once again. Make sure that you have waited at least 12 minutes for it to fully cure. I waited a little bit longer just to be sure. I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to find all the areas where the paint was scraped off. They're a bit harder to see now, but I'm going to go in and do that. I'm sorry, the blue angels are practicing over my house. Those are big airplanes that fly for shows. Pretty cool, but they're pretty loud too. All right, once you have finished putting on your second coat, you're good to go. I mean, it's not going to look as good as when your tail was originally painted. And if you did have a glossy layer over top of it, it might not look quite as good, because you might notice a bit of a difference in the shine of your tail. I will say that if you are using an eyeshadow and you do have, say, a metallic finish, you may want to consider using a metallic color. Like I used a metallic gunmetal gray as opposed to a matte finish or a sparkly finish. Just a little tip there. Again, this won't look as great as if your tail maker repainted your tail, but you can't have your tail repainted every time you get damaged, so this is a lot easier and a lot less expensive. I hope this helped you. If it did, please share it with your friends, and be sure to comment away if you have any tips for other mermaids. Share this video, give it a thumbs up, blah blah blah, subscribe to this channel, whatever you want to do. I appreciate you hanging out here with me, and I hope to see you back next week.